we're going to be doing tonight with the True North Caricature Carvers is the lion's share of the meeting, and the real prime focus of the meeting is painting. And so John Paul has given us a bit of a glimpse at the way that he goes about painting in the past. He's going to spend pretty much a full hour, I hope, tonight showing us step by step his painting style, which is very similar to my painting style. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut and let John just kind of go through it, and hopefully you'll learn something a little bit different about painting in the way that you've done it in the past. If you're like me, you've had the experience of doing a carving that you're really happy with, and then you paint it and you just get disappointed in the whole thing because the painting didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to look. And so it's a really important element of doing caricature carving. And so John's going to take us through that. We're going to spend just a few minutes before that talking about a couple of other things. One is we've had contact with an individual who has a big website down in the States, and he would like to kind of showcase some of our pictures from our last virtual show with the True North Caricature Carvers. So I'll talk a little bit about that for a few minutes, and we'll also talk about our next virtual show that John and I would like to propose and plan.
So I just wanted to show.
Looking good.
So I'm working on this. It's a kind of a bust that I'm carving for an intern who works with me. So I'm gonna give him a ball cap. So just gonna carve it at an angle a little bit, and then put the ball cap on it.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Too bad we didn't have a split screen for Mark Sheridan.
You're full of jokes tonight, aren't you?
So that's what I'm working on.
That's really good. So Furtish, you're gonna angle back the back of his head before you put the ball cap on?
That's right. That's right. So I was thinking that maybe I should cut it with a saw, but then because I blocked the ears off, so now so I probably will have to just carve it and use the trick that you have taught us about using that. And just make sure that it sits. Maybe carve the hat a little bit so it sits like it looks like it's sitting on top of the head.
Yeah,
I'll have to carve it quite I want to bring it close to the ear.
Yeah, and Furtish, like when I've done that, I've actually used a handsaw to do with what you just described. And as you said, just put it like just slightly above the ear. You can come down that angle. Correct. And you can use your handsaw. And then if you just have some sandpaper or a disc sander, you can smooth that off and you're good to go with that.
Yeah, that's what the plan is.
Good, that looks really good.
Looks really good.
Mark, I also wanted to ask you how you laminate like two pieces of wood, because I've tried doing that in the past and I can see a faint line when you carve on it. So what do you use? You use special glue or just any wood glue and just clamp it together? Like what do you do?
Yeah, that's all I do. And so you need two plain surfaces, two very flat surfaces, of course. If there's any warp in your board, you're in trouble. So you have to make sure that you've sanded that down so that they're two plain surfaces. And then I just use carpenter's glue, which is kind of, they call it white glue, but it's actually a little bit of a yellow to it. It's carpenter's or cabinet maker's glue. And then I clamp that together and I really clamp it. So you have to squeeze it so that all the glue essentially comes out. And you shouldn't have a problem after that. Under tips and tricks today, I'm going to show you how I did a little bit of gluing together of joints. And so you'll get a sense of that as well today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else like to share anything?
Yeah, I was going to show you what I've been working on here. This is my latest South Shore Redneck. Let me see where my camera is here.
That's what they're called. Are they South Shore Redneck?
South Shore Rednecks, yeah. I'll paint him up with camo and his little orange vest. His trusty Winchester there, and I've done a lot of these. I have. And anyway, I don't know.
That looks really good. Now tell me, is the ball cap separate, Wayne, or did you do that all in one piece?
Oh yeah, no, I'm a fan of Lynn Duggety.
Okay, yeah, you did it separate. Good for you.
There's the hat.
Yeah, I really like the peak that you put on that hat, that undercut on the peak. That really looks smart.
Yeah, that's the baseball cap they all wear down here when they're not lobstering, they're deer hunting. So, and of course the head is separate as well. So
very good.
And the gun, for anybody who's interested, I don't know, that's in 2 pieces.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty hard to fit. Maybe somebody could put one through his hand, but I find it easier to do that way. I carve the gun complete first.
Yeah.
And the whole gun, and then I locate it. Okay, it would be like that.
Right.
But then I locate the center, cut it in half, and then I, relieve it enough and leave 2 little dowels, and it works all right. So
anyway, I think that's a great idea. I'm going to copy that idea because I've always made the gun straight through, and it is difficult. I like that idea. I'm going to do that.
Well, I've done like some guys, mountain men, whatever, with a muzzleloader, and that's long and slender, and I can do that. But a lot of my guys have a pump shotgun or whatever, so I got the hands. If I made the hands big enough to pass that through, then there'd be, he'd have boxing gloves for hands. So anyway, that's my contribution.
Yeah,
well done.
very good.
Okay, so then maybe I'll move on. I'm just going to go to share screen here and see if we can't pull up the charts that we're going to use. So again, remember that in that top right-hand corner of your screen, you can choose how many of us you see at a time. The more of us you see, the less of the presentation or the presenter that you see. So you play that with your own computer and get what you want out of it. Okay. So again, welcome everybody. We're going to go through the things that I mentioned to you. I'm going to start by talking about this notion here of a broader sharing of photos. Then I'm going to go to the notion of the next virtual show. So I got an email from an individual. His name is Rafton Lafort. He has a very large website down in the States, and I've gone to that website. He has 2 websites here. I've gone to both of them, and it's very well done. And basically what he's done is he's tapped into all of the clubs that he can get his hands on and advertised what they're doing and put a lot of photos from their shows on his website. So it's really well done. So you can see here, he's asked my permission to use our pictures from our last True North Caricature Carvers show in March 17th. So he says, I'd like to include them in my August issue of the World of Decoys magazine, which appears to me to be just but an electronic magazine that he sends out to people. And what he's asked is, are my okay on our behalf to use those photos? And unless anybody here on the line has a real objection to that, I think it'd be great to have our photos on his website with all the other photos that he has. The names, your name will show up with your photo, just as it does on the OWCA website. He's also asked that each one of us email our email addresses to him so that he can send you and me the World of Decoys electronic magazine on a monthly basis. And so I'll leave that up to you guys. I'm not going to send him our distribution list. I'll leave that up to you guys to contact him directly. But you can see again, here are his websites, and this is his email. If you want to write down his email right now, so that should you decide you'd like to be on his distribution list and get this World of Decoys electronic magazine on a regular basis, he'll send that to you directly, okay? Any questions or comments on that? Yes. Oh, did you get that? Okay. The other thing that John and I would like to talk briefly about is the proposal for another virtual show. So I'm not going to go through this in great length because you've seen all this. It's the same words we used for our last show. I just changed the date. So we're going to propose that we have another virtual show, October 20th of this year. We're going to suggest that people have their entries in by October 7th so that John and I have time to sort things out and do the judging. And we're going to suggest that any carvings completed in 2021 and to date in 2022 and that have not been included in our last virtual show in March, all of those carvings are welcome. Again, we're going to say up to 2 carvings per person will be accepted. When you do enter a carving, it has to be entered in novice, intermediate, or advanced class. All entries will be submitted by email. Use up to 3 photos. A good size photo in terms of megabytes. The more detailed, the better, obviously. And again, all caricature carvings are welcome, whether they're human or animal figures, whether they're realistic or mythical, whether it's your pattern or a published pattern, whether it's a rough out, whether you've done it in a workshop, whether somebody helped you with it like an instructor, they're all welcome. And we're, this will be on YouTube. So we're welcoming anybody else that would like to join us to contact me at mark.sheridan@simpatico.ca. And we'll be able to include you in our distribution list, include you in our TNCC group here, and have you part of our upcoming show. Again, the judging, John, Paul, and I will select the first, second, and third in each of the categories. We like last time, we'll take a look at the carvings and move them around from novice to intermediate to open class, depending on what we feel best suits the carving. We hope to have at least 5 or more carvings entered in a class. If not, if there's 3 carvings or less, there'll only be a first prize awarded. If there's 4 carvings, the first and second. And then again, if there's 5 or more, we'll be able to offer a first, second, and third prize. And then John and I will do a judge's critique on the Thursday, October 20th show date. Okay, and that's just our regular monthly meeting of the third week of, or third Thursday rather of the month. Again, we'll do the same thing for certificates, awards rather. The certificates of recognition will be sent out for first, second, and third in each of the classes. All first place winners will receive a 1-year membership to the OWCA. All first, second, and third winners will be featured in our OWCA magazine. If you're not an OWCA member, a copy of the magazine will be sent to you. And we'll have all of the carvings presented again on the OWCA website. So from a milestone standpoint, at today's date, we're just reintroducing the idea, reviewing the general rules for the show. At both our August 18th and September 15th regular meetings, the third Thursday of the month, we'll review any carvings that you're working on and give you a little bit of feedback and advice so that you have the best carving possible for the October show. Again, entered by October 7th. Judging will occur between that date and October 20th. And then, of course, October 20th will be our show. Okay. So that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of the show. Does anybody have any comment on that, or good idea, bad idea, any suggestions? Okay, well, hopefully that silence is just like roaring enthusiasm. We had a lot of fun with it last time, and so I hope we have as much fun with it this time. John and I have been offering little tidbits here and there, and hopefully that's been useful too. And you have been able to incorporate that in some of your carvings, some things maybe you haven't done before. And so we hope to see that kind of thing in the carvings that are submitted. Some of the things that we talked about in the carvings that are submitted. Okay, and with that, we're going to go over to John. And John, I have just 2 slides here to get you started. And then John is going to just pick up the video feed. But John, you probably want to talk about this one first.
Yeah, that's the guy that I'm going to paint tonight. That's the little guy that I carved for the show. And I just want to, I'll show you how I paint, my technique and my how I do it. And what I do is I take a picture of it and get it printed off, and then I color it. I to choose different colors, that I want to try it with before I paint it. This gives me opportunity to try different colors, different setups, and then I choose. And that's it. And then we go from there. Okay. Let's start out with my setup. I always have 2 jars of water, one with the brushes that I use on the white colors or the lighter colors. I use this jar, and then the darker colors, I'll have it on this jar. So if there's, I find mixing the darker water in the white, you know, or the light blues, it changes the color. So I always have a light colored paint washer and a dark color. I spray my carvings first with water, wash them down, wet them down. I use a little palette like this, little cheap dollar store palette. And just want to talk to you about too is when you put one coat of paint on your carving, it's pretty flat. So with the shading, I just wanted to show you about shading by I have a mid-tone and a dark side and a light side. So I paint this one all the one color. Then the mid-tone is in here. So if I say the lighting's come from this side, I have a mid-tone in here, and then a darker side, and the darkest is at the very edge of the carving, or the, say, inside of here. So that gives it some roundness without really a lot of detail. So if you just paint it one color like that, it's going to be flat. But if you start doing some shadows and some highlights, it's going to look round. Everybody see that? See the difference? Okay. Okay. So that's how I set up. This is how I do it. So I'm going to take the head off this guy. I do it the head separately. And I give him a squirt. And just let's.
Why are you wetting it? John, why are you wetting it? Why are you wetting it?
It just, it seems to flow a lot better. The paint flows a little bit better. And it's all ready to go. So what I do, so I chose, for his shirt is going to be light buttermilk. It's a Deco Art color or a product. And I use the white brush here, the white water. And this is, we're talking about washes. You know, it flows pretty good. So that's a wash. So I'm going to put some wash in. I don't want to cover all this detail up and all the brown lines. I just want to, so I'm going to put a wash on here. And with burning those lines in, that keeps the paint separated. I won't overshoot and go on to the darker color. So let's see here. I'll put this on. Oop. Did it already. Moved the wrong jar. Just let me know if I get off camera there, Mark. Yeah, by doing washes or using the wash technique, if I find it too light, I can put another coat on. But if I go directly right from the tube, onto the carving. It's just been over here. Like if I put that on, I can't, it's too thick. I can't take away, I can't add on to it now if I want, or if I wanted it too thin, or not too thin. See, if I wanted to see the wood through it, it'd be impossible. So that's why I do washes, and a lot of people do washes. And
John, why don't you hold the figure really close to the camera now so people can see how transparent that wash is. Like, get it really close to the camera. Okay, good.
So I'm going to go put a second coat on it. And I can always go back and add another one if I like. Anybody's got any questions, let me know. Pop up.
Yeah, it might just be important to kind of point out to everybody that, like, John's not keeping away from the burned lines. You're painting right over them, right, John?
Yep, yep.
And letting that wash just be thin enough that you can still see the burned lines.
Right. Thanks, Mark. If I want, I can come back. But if I put it really opaque and really thick, I have no choice. I have to stick with that color. And all this detail would be covered up.
John Paul, is there a particular brand of paint that you like?
No, I do not. I just whatever the dollar store or Michael's, whatever I can get my hands on. They're almost folk art. I got a lot of folk art and deco art. So for the shirt, I'm going to use burnt sienna. Now, if I went back to that same water with the dark burnt sienna in there and put my white brush in there, my white would turn a little bit off. It'd be a little bit different color. So that's why I like doing it two different washes or two different jars for the brushes. So now we're going to do the brown. So I was going to burnt sienna. It's a real fine wash. You can still see the grain through it. And then I'm going to do some highlight and shadowing after. And like I did with that little piece of wood there, I'm going to find the mid value of this brown or burnt sienna, put it in all the cracks, and then over here and where the sleeves meet, the arms meet. So just your basic coat. And keep on dipping the water in there and keep it nice and thin.
Hey, John, do you have a website where you post pictures of your carvings and stuff? Like,
Yeah, a Facebook page.
Okay.
On Woodland Spirits. It's on Facebook.
Okay.
Or I do the Caricature Carvers Facebook page. I have them. All my carvings go on there.
Name of that Facebook page again, John?
Woodland Spirits.
Whittling spirits or woodland spirits?
Woodland
Woodland.
Spirits.
Woodland.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Maybe the other thing I'll just add while John's doing that, like with this color that he's using, you get a good sense of what a wash looks like. It's always difficult to describe to a person how thin is a wash, but you get a real sense of this is that it's very, very translucent. And the other thing I'll mention is like, just notice how random John is painting. That looks great on a carving because you end up having it a little bit thicker in some spots than others, and it just gives it a realism. Like if you look at your own clothes, it's not all the same tone. Everything is a different tone depending on a wrinkle or how the light's hitting it.
Now I'll go back where these little folds are at. I'll go a little thicker now. Let's see here. That's another wash, not so much thicker, but or darker. It's pretty. It's almost like the highlight of the color right now. You'll see that in a minute. So I'm going to go over back in the creases here. And see how much it's a little bit darker in the, oops, where am I here? It's a little darker in there, right? In the creases. You want to show roundness, right? If it's just like that, it looks pretty flat. You can still see the carving a little bit, but once I get the painting done, it really, everything pops up. If you happen to put it on too thick, just wash it, brush it, wash it, and it comes right off. You put it on too thick. So this is just the undercoat right now. So we're just going to stick with that right now, let this dry. I'm going to do the pants. So I'm going to use dark chocolate for the pants. See that pretty good? So now I'm going to put a little brown pants. A nice wash. I go over the whole carving, lock it all in. Then I'll put the highlights and shadows in a minute. Yeah, you want to, when you're doing your carving, you don't want to paint over all your detail. You want to show your carving off, your carving skills off. So. I find if you put it too opaque, too thick, all that work that you did, you just covered it all up. I should have put them on a paint stick. So right now it's like one coat. So this would be almost like the the highlight. You'll see what I mean in a second here. Paint his shoes now. It's going to paint his shoes black. When you're doing this wash too, you only need little drops of paint. You don't need much paint. Quiet crowd.
We don't want to distract you. You might run the paintbrush up your pant leg.
No, I'm good. So there, that's like one wash. So like at this point, I like putting on the hat, the head, and see what he looks like. Right? Just try to. Where'd he go? See what he might look like. This in the hole here. No comment. Anyway, but that's one. You could hold it right there, stop there. But I always like push. I like to kick it up a notch. So what I do is I want the mid value of this color. So I'll take the pants color and mix it with the burnt sienna. That's the, I'll wash that out. The original color, the highlight color. So I'll put that a little bit over there and I'll make some darker mid-tone. Start at the back. In case I don't like it, I can change it. And I like it. So wash that out. And where all these folds are and all where the arms meet, the jacket, I want to get mid-tone. I want a nice roundness so it looks kind of flat. But watch this. So just add a little bit of mid-tone to there. Maybe a little darker. That's the beauty of doing a wash. I can add to it. Like I said, if it's too dark, just rinse your brush off and right away wash it out. Those cracks. You see the difference between the one side and the other side. bring that out a bit. That's the shadow of that. That'll bring that nice and round. Keeping some of that highlight, the original color. And the shoulders a bit. Run that up a little bit like that. Because his back is pretty flat and not much detail, I didn't carve a lot of stuff in there. I can bring that mid-tone out a little bit longer, a little bit wider out. You can see the difference. You see that, Mark? Is there the difference?
Yeah, that looks really good, John. That's a good shot of it.
Okay. So now the mid-tone of the pants is that brown, and I mix a little bit of black in there. It's pant color. And right underneath where his jacket is, I can see a shadow spot. I can fill that in, nice little shadow area. So underneath that, I can fill that in. That gives it some roundness. Where his creases are. All the way around the bottom of his, where the shirt meets his pants. His butt. Everybody see that? Okay, now for his shoes. I go a little darker with the black. Go around the soles a bit. Right on the bottom of where the pants meet the shoes, I darken it a little bit. So now white and like for a shirt, I always use a purple. And it is Midnight Folk Art is Midnight Blue, I think it is. Midnight something. Doesn't say what it is, but for the mid-tone of the white, like I did on this rabbit here. You see the purple? Put purple in the white. For it's a cooler color because white is cooler, and so you want a cool shadow. So I put we got to switch brushes here. Smaller brush. You guys hear that ambulance? You hear the fire truck? Must be a fire going on near my place. I bring that out a little bit, keep that highlight area. Bring that purple out a bit. Creates a nice shadow. So now what I do is the same brush. I do the third wash in the cracks in the fold. So I want to take a little bit of the black. I can use any darker or dark brown, whatever you want. But I like using the black. So I use a black in that mid-tone color, which is right here. And I put it right in the crack. So it really shows roundness there. I'm going to emphasize that sleeve. Bring it out a little bit. You see the difference there, Mark?
Yeah, and just pull it back to the center a little bit towards you, your body. There, perfect.
See that difference from that one?
Oh yeah, it looks good.
Okay. We're gonna bring this up just a bit more. I want to create that shadow. And there's obviously there'd be a shadow in it. There's a sweater there, so I want to keep that nice and brown, dark. That'll really make that round.
while John's painting there, I'll just mention, like, one of the things that we've talked about a few times on these calls is the notion of making everything as round as possible, not having any like square sides, drawing those center lines on the front and the sides, and carving from center line to center line so that everything's round. And so once you get it round, once you get the arms round, even the wrinkles rounded, what John's doing by putting these different tones in and darkening the valleys of the carving, it's even accentuating that roundness, right? And so it's fooling the eye even further to suggest that those wrinkles and those crevices or those separations between the arm and the body are actually deeper than they are.
Yep. And I said it better myself. Yeah, let's see back here. With the darker color, I don't go like the mid-tone. I went out further, but the darker I went tight in. I went close. So I want that, like that ball on the first color there. I want that dark, the edge dark. I'm gonna switch to my purple again. Okay, so going back here with a little bit of dark. Yeah, I'll put the head on, see what he looks like again. Back to the purple. And that's pretty much it for this little guy. It's so I like doing like the highlights and the shadows. And what do you think, you guys? You think it's quite a bit of difference, right? When you put a little bit of mid-tone in and then the darker inside, it makes a big difference. It helps with your carving.
That looks really good, John. Hey, listen, you don't have to do it, but why don't you talk a little bit about, like, if you wanted him to have sort of worn elbows, what would you do?
Yeah, okay.
Like if his jacket or if his sweater was worn a bit.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to do one thing. I should have put some. I missed one part is a little bit of highlight. So that what is it called there? Light buttermilk. It's another wash. See if you had worn out elbows, you could just put these little highlights in there. Or its pockets.
Now, I'm just going to stop John for a minute because he did something that was kind of an important point. You put the paint down and then you rubbed it with your fingers. So talk about that.
It was just a little too thick, so I just wore it out, just washed it off a little bit. It's not really what I wanted, so I just give it a little. Once you put that Verathane on there, all those colors just pop right out. His knees are a little worn out, so put a little color on his knees, his shoes. I would put buttons in after.
Now, John, when you're putting in those worn parts, I know you mentioned that it's a wash, but it's probably a little bit of a thicker wash. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a dry. Like I tested it on my hand like this, and then I put it on.
So again, when you hear people saying, you know, they're doing what John's doing right now by adding a little wear by dry brushing, that's exactly what John is doing right now. You know, he may have added a little water to it, but not too much. But you can see he's checking, he's taking it off of his brush, he's trying it on his hand to see how much ends up on the hand before he puts it on the carving, because you just want a tone there. You certainly don't want anything opaque.
And then I think it looks pretty cool. This old guy. Any questions?
Hold it right up to the camera now, John, and just turn it slowly so that people can see all the detail that you did.
Okay, I'm just turning it around here, and just want to say, like, you got to keep those darker spots and like the shadows. That really pops everything out. Makes it like a different kind of paint, a paint job. You know. Let me see. It's pretty dry. Let me give me a second here. I usually brush on the varnish, but I have some spray. That's my technique. This is how I do it. This is fast drying polyurethane, Minwax, clear satin. It'll dry, and all these colors really, they'll pop right up, right out. Sorry.
So that's an oil-based urethane. Is that correct, John?
It's a water base.
Oh, it's a water-based. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Fast drying. Any questions?
I have a question, Paul.
Yes, sir.
John, what kind of brushes are you using?
I just got them from Michael's. Nothing special. Nothing special. No, I just look for these the packages are usually 6 in a pack. And I've been using these for years. I haven't bought any for years. They're pretty worn out. Artist Loft is one of them. I just look for different shapes, like the bigger ones, like the little tiny ones. You know, just have all your whites in that brush. You see, it's a lot cleaner. And then, like after I painted with all the dark brown, it's pretty dark. So if I would have mixed that water or the dirty brush into that white, it would have changed the color of the white. That's what I feel. I could be wrong.
Hey, John, do you use any special technique to paint the eyes? Because eyes are really tricky to paint because they are so small and stuff. And
well, this guy has no eyes, but do I have any? It's basically a white. I use an off-white, but I put a little bit of a shadow on the top of the eyeball. So it gives it roundness again. Then I put the dot in. Then I put the little white dot for the reflective side. And that's about it. And put a varathane on it, a shiny varathane on the eyeballs. There's no really special technique.
Okay. Thanks.
All I use is black. But some people use the blue or green first, then the black, then the white, you know. So if he's got blue eyes, you put a black dot, then you put a white dot for a reflective side.
It might be helpful to when you think about doing the eye, what I've done, and John, I imagine you do the same thing, is you do the white of the eye first. Don't do the face color first, because it'll be impossible to get in there and do the white of the eye later without painting all over the face. So do the white of the eye first. If you get some of the white on the eyelid, it's not a big deal because it's easier to come back later and do the face. It's just an easier process with the paintbrush to do the face and cover the white rather than the reverse, trying to cover the, to white second.
But I don't paint my faces. I use that oil. This is all these ones are oil. The Minwax oil. Any other questions? So when you guys are doing your carvings for the next competition, we'll any techniques we can help you with to get your carving at its best. We'll be here to help you. Painting, carving, whatever. Any tips, you let us know.
Okay, John, that was terrific. Thank you very much.
No problem.
What we'll do now is we'll talk a little bit about tips, chips, and tricks. I brought one example, and if anybody has anything else you want to add off the cuff in terms of a tip that you've come across, we'll spend a few minutes doing that before we sign off. So I've recently started this carving. So we're probably all about the same vintage. We remember writing these things at the Kresge store or the Woolworth store, and you put your nickel in and go for a little ride on the mechanical horse. And so my idea behind this is I'm going to add a rider to it and make a little story out of it. And I'm thinking of calling it trick riding. So it was fun to do this horse. I wanted to do the horse to make a little, call it lifelike, the mechanical horses you see at the old stores, but I wanted a little bit of caricature in it as well. So I took a look at the website. I downloaded some pictures of old mechanical horses. I also went to Lynn Dowdy's website. He does a fantastic caricature of a horse. And so I've got some elements of that in this as well, and came up with my own little pattern for the horse. The thing I wanted to talk to you about, though, is that, as you know, I always try to make the thing as strong as possible. So I knew that if I made this horse with the grain going in this direction, the body and the head and the neck would be strong enough. But you can imagine if the grain went along here or along here, they'd be pretty weak legs. You know, they'd probably snap off at some point in their life. And so I wanted the grain to go in this direction along each of the legs. And so I needed to now figure out a way to put the legs on the body of the horse. I thought about the dowel process, but couldn't really get my head around doing a dowel process like we do with an arm attached to a body. And what I came up with is this. I had what is known as a Forstner bit, which is a round bit. This is probably about 3/4 inch diameter, but it has a flat bottom. If you've ever put in these hidden hinges on your kitchen cupboards, they take a round hole that you bore into the inside of the door, and then the hidden hitch fits into that. And the value of using this Forstner bit is that there's no sort of conical shape to the bit. It's completely flat. And so what I did was I cut the horse's body out on the bandsaw, and then just with a compass, I made 2 circles where that Forstner bit would make a portion of that curve. I put it on the bandsaw, and I used the Forstner bit to just bore down maybe 3/8 of an inch or something like that. Not all the way through, not anywhere near even halfway through, but just enough that I'd get a nice flat surface all the way through, to maybe about 3/8 of an inch. And then I took the legs, and I took the compass and made the same diameter circle on the legs and just cut that out with scissors, and brought that to the bandsaw and cut those legs out, just making this curve on the bandsaw. Now you can see each of the legs, front and back. This was the pattern I drew. I had to cut out one piece of the leg to make one leg, the opposite piece of the leg to make the other leg. I did that front and back. And then I took this bandsaw cut, which wasn't a perfect circle. I took it and sanded it a little bit and shaped it a little bit. And I used that method of etching the edge of it, just these edges of it, with some carbon, and just making an imprint on the body and shaping it back and forth to get a real as tight a fit as I could. And I took all the pieces, and then I just glued it all together. And Fergus, this is going back to your original question. You can see how much white glue, this is the cabinet maker's glue back here, that I would have put on those joints. And I just squeezed them together as hard as I could. And it made a real nice, tight, strong fit. In fact, I've had people tell me that when you put white glue on a piece of wood like that portion of the wood is actually stronger than any other portion of the wood. And then when I did the rough out and started cutting away, it did a pretty nice job. You can see in here, there's, that dark line is the white glue that you see. There were a couple of gaps that came out, and I just used a little bit of wood filler. You can hardly see it in here, but that was just enough to make that a nice smooth seam. And so you can see from this picture, the Forstner bit would have bored down to about that far. The leg would have fitted in at that point. Same on the other side, same on the back. It was kind of is kind of an interesting way to do it, to add legs in this fashion without doing a dowel. So something I thought I'd share with you. You might be able to use somewhere along the line. Okay.
Tip, Mark.
Pardon?
That was a good tip.
Good. Any other tips or tricks anybody'd like to share? Well, then let me thank John again for doing a great job showing us how he does his painting. It turned out great. And again, it's one of those things where after putting all the time and effort into carving, you want the painting to look spectacular. And so this is a good way of making it look spectacular. And as John said, you know, hopefully in the carvings you make between now and October 20th, when we have our next show, you'll try some of these methods on painting as well. So with that, I think I'll sign off unless anybody else has anything else to say. And hope everybody's staying in air conditioning or on a cool breeze at the end of the dock somewhere and enjoying your summer carving.